Drink with James, episode 24, live. I feel like this is a big step for us. A few things. One, we're really excited to have Rachel Martino here. She's incredible, and we're already a little drunker than we usually are to do these things, so this should be fun. Two, I feel like the lighting isn't great for me right now. I mean, you look awesome, but I feel like I probably have like some shadows over my eye sockets, so I apologize for that. Maybe Tim can clean it up in post. But is there no post in film?
You look great, actually.
Thank you. I know. I was actually fishing for a compliment. So we are here at For You, which generally we kind of do is more of a lecture, but we thought we would do Drink with James live. I think there comes a point in every show's time when they do a live segment. This is like, you know, Ira Glass and This American Life. They do like a live.
It's a great
probably
podcast.
Pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
Drink with James live and This American Life.
I think it's the same audience and the same amount of people definitely watching. For sure.
I actually do a decent Ira Glass impersonation, I feel like. You want me to do it now? All right, 1 second. Hold on.
We're not using our great coasters.
I know. Well, it's marble on marble. Okay, ready?
Very chic, very cool.
This American Life, I'm Ira Glass. On today's episode, we talk to Rachel, who goes to the ends of the earth to find the best beauty tips. I don't know what else.
That was great.
Yeah. So I'm Ira Glass, less nasally and less rich. So we'll jump into it, okay? So if y'all don't follow Rachel and you're watching this video, you can change that by looking at her feed and her Instagram, which Tim will put somewhere around here, like maybe like a shooting star for emphasis. So give us your story, right? When did you start? Did you start a blog to be a blogger? Did you just kind of start an Instagram? How did it all start?
I still remember my first video. I was using this really crappy HP laptop. I had headphones in, and I was like, "Hi guys, I'm Rachel." No editing, like full one take video of me doing like a braided hair that people had always asked, like, how do you do that braid? And I uploaded it, and I still remember like getting some of the first comments, and I was just like, wow, there's people watching this.
You're like, hey mom.
Wait, that's really nice to think that my mom knew how to use YouTube in 2010. She did not. She still doesn't know how to find my videos. But I, started making these videos, and I just fell in love with the community. I thought it was incredible to be able to communicate with people all over the world, and you could see that people were watching from different countries, and this was early on in the YouTube years even. So I loved that, and so I had a channel in English, and then I actually started a channel in French because I was a French major at university, and I wanted to practice my French. So I started a different channel in French, and that channel actually was extremely popular from the beginning because it was sort of niche to see this American girl with this like cute American accent speaking French. So I had the two channels, and when I got back to college, I continued the two channels, and then I started a blog in addition, just to sort of, people were asking on my YouTube channels, do you have a blog? I didn't even know what a blog was, but I started one on Blogger, and that's sort of like how everything started. And after I finished college, I moved to New York to work in beauty, because my dream was always just to be a social media manager at a beauty company. So I got the job at Estee Lauder on the Origins brand as a social media manager, and it was an incredible experience. I worked there for 3 years full time, and during that time I saw this huge shift in the perception of the blogger. When I first started there, we were not working with bloggers, and it wasn't even considered that we would work with bloggers. And by the time I left, I was running influencer campaigns and doing a ton of gifting and all those type of things. So I feel like the story is so long, I'm sorry.
No, you're slaying, it's fine.
So I did that job for 3 years at the headquarters in New York, and I decided to resign after taking a trip with James and the four card crew in Bermuda, and I just had such a great experience with all these other full-time bloggers, and I just said to myself, why not take a chance? I'm 25 years old. If I'm going to do it, may as well do it now. And I did. So it's been over a year that I've been a full-time blogger and YouTuber.
Yeah.
And it's the best job ever. So.
But it was interesting being on the trip because we were there with JC, who's been on the show, and Danielle from We Were What, and Luana, who has like
2 million.
I think most of Peru that follows her. She might actually be like an elected official there.
Yeah, probably.
And you were at the time, I think, right around, I think 100, you thought 120, I don't really know.
Yeah, something like that.
Cam, who's our lead developer, he probably knows. He could probably figure it out. But you were on the, you were on the smaller side.
Yeah, I was the smallest blogger that was there.
Who was on
sure.
that trip, and I think the reason you were invited was that your content was very different, which allows you to be a part of a lot of campaigns. It probably also stops you from being part of others.
Sure.
Have you always dressed like this, or did you, as a businesswoman, did you see a niche and say like, oh, I can own this look?
I guess I wish I could say that I was a businesswoman and had this great strategy, but I didn't. I think that when I decided that my blog, I didn't decide, it just, I remember at the beginning, people would be like, what's your blog? I said, well, it's Rachel Martino, and they were like, that's not cool. Like, it was all about like sparkles and studs, or like, this persona, like, having a different.
Did you think about calling it sparkles and studs?
No, but I thought about like pinup like Rach or something else, like, but to me, I just started with Rachel Martino was my YouTube name because I didn't know what else to call it. I was really boring. I don't wish I would have thought of something, because actually the migration happened where people wanted to move to their names.
Right.
And I already had my name as all of my channels. But it was always, because I think because I came from YouTube, and YouTube is really intimate, it's really personal, it's just always been me. Like, I've evolved a lot and my style has changed, but that's only because it's changed. I'm not 19, I'm 26. And
God.
I know. So I think that staying true to what you really love, what I really love, has been so important, because I think that's what the readers love, and staying true to what fits me, what I love, and not taking on campaigns from brands that I don't feel like align with who I want to be. I am always trying to be very accessible. So the Rachel Martino brand is like, I shop at Old Navy, I shop at Target, but then I have a couple, higher end pieces. But to me, it's like, I want people to be able to really be able to recreate my looks. It's nothing that's gonna be like, whoa, I don't know if I could pull that off. It's very real.
I have a question about that, because obviously you're doing well, right? And you're making more money. No, this is something I've talked to a few influencers about. It's like, you start low in that hey, here's an awesome way to wear Old Navy and look great, okay? And then you're pulling in really, really good money, and you start to be like, Old Navy's awesome, you know what else is awesome? Is Chanel.
Sure.
So you can start to afford those things.
Yeah.
And I've talked to YouTubers where it's like, they got popular, talking about drugstore brands.
Sure.
And then they have enough money to buy Tom Ford and Chanel makeup, and it's like, well, this is legitimately better. I want to use this. So is there Rachel Martino? Is there Rachel Martino and then Rachel Martino? Are your styles now different because you can afford much nicer things? Or are you still dressing the way you dress for your blog in your personal life?
Yeah. Well, it's actually interesting that you say that, because I feel like I've gone on this sort of transformation in the last few years, and I know we talked about this a little bit before, but I decided to go on sort of a fitness journey, and I lost a good amount of weight, and because of that, I feel like my style has changed in a different way. That's kind of like an aside, but I think that I always want to be someone who's wearing clothes that are accessible and that are going to be at a price point that I think that, because I think coming from YouTube, my followers are very young, generally speaking, although they're growing up, which is kind of weird.
Right.
Because they grow with you, but new followers are always still in this even 13 to 18 category, and I never want to feel like I'm somebody who you look at and you're like, oh, I never want to be aspirational, I always want to be attainable. And so I think that that's something I've really tried to stick to, and yes, because now I can afford some pieces, I do personally buy things that are a little bit more expensive.
There we go.
I do.
Nice.
I mean, I'm just a human.
Of course.
I bought a Chloe bag and it was the best day of my life. I was so excited. But I will wear it with like Old Navy. Are you gonna give me some more or just you?
Just me. I'm
That's such a hard question. James asked the hardest questions.
So yeah, anything that you did over that time that worked well in growing your following is question one, and two is growing a following on YouTube versus Instagram. I think most of our community right now is focused on Instagram and how can they grow that. Is it different, and do you have tips for both?
Yes. Okay. So the first question was,
I can't remember.
how did I grow at all? Like,
Yes.
what were some tips for
What were
growth?
some good things that you did overall?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest things I did on YouTube, and again, like all of these platforms sort of flow together. Like you might have readers that only watch your YouTube and maybe don't follow you, but in general, like any channel that you're doing is a way to get new followers on another channel, if that makes sense. Because there's cross promotion between all of them. But on my YouTube channel, a big thing I did was a lot of collaborations with other YouTubers, and that was a great way to just share audiences. And I do that on my Instagram as well, but that was a big way that I grew my YouTube following, was just emailing other YouTubers and saying, hey, would you like to do a video together? And we didn't have to live in the same place. Actually, usually it would be
We can have that. It's okay. You shouldn't turn it off.
So what's called like a swap. So we would set a budget and create like this beauty box for each other and send it and open it on camera. And the days that we would do these videos, that they would go live, it would be insane. Like I would have 2,000 new subscribers in a day, because they would watch the video on the person's channel that they already followed, and at the end of the video they would say, if you want to see what Rachel sent me, or vice versa, check out Rachel's channel. And so it was a great way to share audiences, and I think collaborating with other bloggers, Instagrammers, YouTubers is a huge way to grow a following.
Do you still do that? Like, I've never heard that swap.
Yeah.
What is it called? Swap box?
Swap, just like a swap.
It's a swap box.
It's not, it's a swap.
Is that something you still do? Because now you're 200, like, you know, you still do it.
I haven't done it in maybe a year, but it's still something. I actually have, like last week I was thinking about it again and was emailing some YouTubers, and you know, you just, no matter at what point you are, to me it's always about growth, while still engaging with your current audience. And so connecting with other people in the community, I think, is the best way. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. I think, of course, it's important to have the best content that you can, but like there are so many other bloggers and YouTubers that are maybe at your level. That's another thing. You connect with people that are at your level. You know, you don't go to, if you have 10,000 subscribers on YouTube and you ask somebody with 200,000 subscribers on YouTube to create a video with you, it's probably not going to happen.
Right. Is that your way of being like, back off 10,000 subscribers?
No.
Emailing me constantly being like, let's do a swap box.
But
that's what it's called?
It's not called a swap box. It's just swap. It's just a swap.
So find people at your level.
Find people at your level. I think, you know, in the same way you can work, it's not working with brands, but tagging brands in your photos. And if you tag, like for example, one way I grew a big amount on my Instagram was that I had an entire outfit from H&M and they reposted it, and H&M I think has 9 million Instagram followers, and I saw a huge jump. So just being strategic about what you're posting, if it can be reposted somewhere, in just having great content, obviously.
So that's something we've talked about here, is just like before you're working with brands on a paid, even if you are already working with brands on paid, like to do those kinds of posts that you think, oh, I bet the brand would love this and potentially repost it. Are you still thinking about that pretty strategically, of saying like, okay, I'm going out and, you know, I need a new top, I have this joie top, let's see if I can like get them to
definitely
repost it.
I mean, I think being strategic about everything that you buy, everything that you wear, is just part of being a blogger. And it's like, if you ask me any day of the week ever, I know what I'm wearing, I know what the brands are, if I worked with the brands, if I haven't, and just making sure that you are aware of the possibilities, because working with brands can sometimes start just by wearing their clothes. Or if you're gonna have a cold open to a brand, if you email a brand, you wanna have an Instagram to say like, hey, like I was loving this top and I was wearing it a ton, link, link, link.
Right.
And that's a great way to show, like, I'm not just looking for money or for gifting. I appreciate your brand, I love your brand, I wear it organically, and like, let's see what we could do together.
So that's perfect, first of all. But so, you know, there comes a point in every influencer's like life cycle where you do start being like, oh, I could maybe make some money off this. So we already talked about like the moment when you quit and you were doing well enough to be able to quit your really good corporate job. But in the beginning, how did you change? How did you take that following that you were growing and kind of turn it into money?
Yeah, and I think starting from a YouTube background and coming from the business side where I knew what the potential was made a huge difference. Because the first time I worked with, my first introduction to YouTube was working with YouTube celebrities and spending money. And I was like, oh my God, these girls that are 16, we're giving them X amount of money. That's so cool. Yeah. And like knowing that there's that potential there always was in the back of my mind. And on YouTube, you can start making money very early because there's AdSense. So you basically have this kind of like built-in way of earning money through the ads that they show on your channel. But the first, I remember it always starts with gifting, and that's really exciting. And you're like, oh my God, this brand is giving me this, and this for free. So that's always like point A. And then point B, I remember my first paid campaign, they reached out to me and it was for $200. And it's with an agency that I still work with today. But I was like, oh my God, they want to give me $200.
Yeah.
I was so excited.
Yeah.
And, that was only like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And that's, you have to start somewhere.
Right.
And just working with that agency, working with that brand was the first time I was able to earn money directly from a brand in that way. And after that, I just was, every campaign that I would get, to be honest, like I would ask for more money. And I think that's something bloggers are always a little scared. Even if it was $50, even if it was $100, like just pushing them a little bit, because you always want to know what you're worth and push it. Like it's the same thing when you have a job, like, you want to negotiate that salary. And I think for bloggers, and then not trying to get political, but for women, it's a little bit harder to kind of ask for more. But I think that it's so important. And sometimes I think in my head about all the money that I would have lost, all those $50 and then $100 and then $1,000, that if I wouldn't have asked for them, how much less I would have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that like what's interesting is that like no brand, I'm sure, right? That like you said, oh, what about twice as much as you just said?
Yeah.
No brand just says, no, I never want to speak to you again, get away from me.
Yeah.
Right? They
very,
like
be very rare.
Right. And there are times where I'm sure they were like, oh, it's 2,000. You're like, what about 4? And they're like, no, we only have 2. And then you have that moment where you're like, okay, like, do I want to do this? And maybe it's worth it to you.
Sure.
And and I think brands are generally good about being like, I understand that. I wish I could give you that. Sure. I can't this time. And it doesn't necessarily pigeonhole you to not getting 4K next time.
Definitely.
Or 400 or whatever your price is. But yeah, I think that's a really good point, because you never are going to lose a deal because you ask for more money. You're never going to lose a relationship because you ask for money.
Definitely. And I think being reasonable, like I would never ask for double necessarily. I would, if they say 2, then you say 3. You know what I mean? Or 2, it's just a matter of finding what that sweet spot. And then a lot of times they'll come back. Let's say if you ask for 2,000, or they say 2,000, you ask for 3, then they're going to come back with 2,500. But there's $500 that you would have never had if you would have just said yes in the first place. So I think that that's something that I've felt really strongly about from the beginning. And there were bloggers that helped me see that, because at the beginning, like the $200 campaign, I didn't ask for more money. Like at the beginning, it's very hard, And
do you think again, like a lot of the people who watch Drink with James, I think religiously, hopefully everyone here, it's early on, and you can have that thing where you like, somebody's like, hey, let me give you 200, and you're like, I want 400, and like, is there a point in your career where you should just be a little more amenable to what people want, or should you always be pushing for more?
I think it's interesting, because I think at the beginning it's all about forming relationships. So that's the most important, because at the beginning of your career, in any career, it's like you need to have the best relationships that you can with people, and do at any point doing the best work. But at the beginning, like you're really just trying to meet people, PR people, agency people. There's so many different aspects of blogging, of people that you work with, because it could be an agency, it could be a brand direct, or it could be a PR person, which maybe they don't actually have any budget. So really you're only gonna get gifting from them. So it's just thinking strategically about, I feel like I've said strategically 1,000 times, sorry.
It's totally fine. Tim's gonna do a super cut of just you saying strategically.
Yeah, I love it. So at the beginning, I think it's okay to, if a brand says, maybe they say, you say 200, they say 200, you say 300, they say we can only do 200, then maybe still say yes. And still work with them and still do the best job that you can. But then the next time they come around, remember that you've done something and you can go further.
Right. You've validated yourself with them. You've proven like, hey, I'm in. If you pay me, I'm doing a great job. And like, do you
and do the best that you can. Go above and beyond.
Yeah.
On
Do you
any
generally
campaign.
do you try and over deliver when you're in a campaign that you really like? Like,
yeah.
You don't just say like, oh, it's 2 Instagrams and a tweet. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like you.
I think it depends on the campaign, but I always try, and with every campaign, it's like, especially if you want to work with them again, try and do something, even if it's one Snapchat or one Instagram story, you know, just make sure that you're doing a little bit extra, or maybe send like a thank you card. I've sent thank you cards to brands and they love it. They love it. You know,
do you send an email after with like, here's my posts? Like, do you wrap it up for them and say like, this is what I did, here's all the links, here's everything, like, so that they don't have to go digging for that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, now it's a little different that I have an agency that handles that, but yeah, I mean, making sure that they have everything available to them. And if you do extra, it's fine to tell them. Say that you did an extra Snapchat and what your Snapchat views are a day, so they can, because the brands are always creating reports. And so you want to make their report even better. So if you can say, hey, not only did I do the Instagram, the blog post that you requested, but I did 3 snaps about it. Because a lot of times when I'm doing maybe a beauty tutorial campaign, I'm always snapping about it because I'm like creating this cool style and it's like a little sneak peek of what I'm doing. And showing that extra value can help you get the next campaign.
Do you, I'm just personally interested, do you save those snaps and send them to them? Do you say, hey, I did 3 snaps? Like, how do you, just because it's difficult to Snapchat, obviously, like, how do you communicate that to brands?
I try and remember to screenshot them and then screenshot, you know, what your average view is. I'm not perfect. I don't do that every time, but that's what I would recommend, definitely, to do that.
And ideally, the brand is following you on Snapchat.
Ideally, but
you know,
I mean,
but not all the time.
They're not.
Yeah. So you talked about relationships, and it's interesting because now you're our 3rd influencer on the show. You know, we had Ambitionista and Damsel in Dior on here, and both of them, well, they're both from LA, but they come to New York once a month just to go to dinner with brands and have meetings with brands. You're here.
Yes.
How important is that? It's tough if you don't live in the city because this is where every brand is.
Yeah.
But yeah, how much are you courting brands and going to meetings and going to dinners and going to drinks and things like that?
A lot. I mean, I think that your relationships are the most valuable thing that you have. And it's so important to show the brands that you're not just doing things just necessarily, I mean, I guess that's hard to say. You know, you are invested in them as much as they're invested in you, because any relationship should sort of have equal value. So they want to feel like you're adding value for them, but they're adding value for, you know, it should go both ways. And I think having those great relationships with, I mean, and it's a lot, you know, you have the PR people, you have the social media people, you have the brand people. It's a lot to manage, but that's the most important, because I mean, I have known you for years, right?
Sometime, yeah.
Quite some time.
I mean, probably 4 years, 3 or 4 years.
At least, yeah. I mean, I remember when 4Card was first started, and I was like, heck yes, get me on this thing, like very cool. And to me,
that exact thing.
I probably did.
Probably email.
And then I was like, sparkle. So I think my relationship with you and with everyone on the 4Card team is so important. That's why even just doing something like this is important, especially you.
Yeah, especially
You're my baby.
Absolutely. Are there brands as well, like you know, 4Card works with a lot of luxury clients. I know you work with a lot of luxury clients. Like, do you have those brands that either supported you from the beginning, that either you work with on a massive discount, or that you don't expect them to pay and you're just happy to have the relationship with them? Because I think as influencers are building their following and they're building their businesses, it's so much about like get paid, like understand that. Like, do you have those brands that you work with who don't pay you, that you're just happy to have in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think with like, I guess trade is kind of more what we're saying. There are brands that I've worked with for a long time where it's not necessarily like I'm gonna post entirely with your outfit, but like there are brands like, I can say ModCloth is a brand that I'm obsessed with. Like I will go on their site and lose my shit, just because I love their product offering and I think it's really aligned with my brand. And I worked with them for a long time. Like I remember I did, when I could have gotten paid, like a Instagram takeover on my own Instagram of like 4 pictures in this one ModCloth dress, all focused on this dress. And fortunately that has turned into business now, but I think that there are opportunities, especially with brands that you're really aligned with. There are certain brands that maybe will never have the budget, or but that you just feel are like quintessentially you. And that's okay. Like, form those relationships, and like, because it's so, you know, it's not gonna seem forced if you post about them a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that it's like, there are brands that can also maybe help you get the money, right? Like, I mean, I was Tom Brown's photographer for years. I never got a cent.
Yeah.
You know, like literally not a single cent from money from them. And I just saw my friend Aaron is here. He's now Tom Brown's photographer. I know they don't pay him either. You work with that brand, you get 10 other opportunities that you wouldn't. And
definitely.
Listen, thank you so much for being here. Drink Your James, episode 24, live. Next year will probably be at, I think we'll do a Yankee Stadium. But thank you guys. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, thank you.